Hey everybody, Monica Bodierski here, artist and author of the Shadowland Tarot and the House of Shadows Lenormand. How are you doing today? So, we are coming up to the dark moon, so I thought we could do a little moon work and a little shadow work together. I'm even wearing my moonstone and this labradorite, which for me is all about the dark moon. For those of you who are wondering about the dark moon, you can also call it the new moon. It is when the moon is completely invisible in the sky. It's having a rest. So do I. That is the time that I reflect. I find it's a really good time. Sometimes the moon's energy is so strong, especially if you have a spiritual practice that involves the moon. You know, you can't sleep when there's a full moon. You feel restless. I feel very much that when the moon is completely invisible in the sky, it's a wonderful time to go inward and reflect and take a pause. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do this 2-card full moon and dark moon spread, but we're going to add that little thing about shadow work. I know some people aren't fond of shadows. They're not scary. If you peer into them with the light of knowledge and awareness, they're no longer shadows. And remember, there's no such thing as shadows without light to cast those shadows. So, just look at it as part of a balance in the universe. I'm in Shadowland. This is my studio. It's where I create all the characters that live in Shadowland, in my tarot deck and in my Lenormand, in my art. It's also a place that I get to create all sorts of wonderful thought forms that sometimes make it out into the world as those drawings and illustrations or creative ideas. I love shadows. So let's take a look at a couple of cards. Now, you might say, what is the difference between just pulling a couple of cards and doing shadow work? Well, shadow work that I'm talking about is based on Carl Jung's theory about the shadow self being that part of yourself that you're not acknowledging. And some people are really nervous about doing that because they are afraid of what they'll find. They're going to beat themselves up over it. They're going to feel even worse than they already do, so why bother? I understand that, but you know, those shadows aren't usually so terrible and so completely unknown. There are aspects of ourselves we might have an inkling that we tend to do or that we're just kind of suppressing it. And that can often be because society tells us it's just not a good thing to be. So you don't want to do that. You want to conform. Who doesn't want to at times just to be accepted, right? But there's a thing about this that Jung felt, that when we don't acknowledge those shadows, we aren't complete, we aren't whole, integrated people. And then we might do those things like project those shadows that are actually our stuff onto others. Or basically we're handing them our baggage and then blaming them for it. That's not a way to be, really. So, looking at the shadows is, again, not self-blame or to feel worthless, but just to say, okay, maybe I do that. How is it affecting me? How's it affecting those around me? Maybe I can eradicate that by accepting I am that person or I am like that, and then work on changing things. Or tell people that is how I am and maybe not hide anymore and feel brave about that. Takes a lot of guts, some of these shadows, I will admit. But once integrated, you know, you do feel better, you feel whole, you feel a lot calmer, and I think it's worth it. It's worth reflecting on. And don't forget, I made the Shadowland cards a little lighthearted so that it wouldn't be so creepy to delve into those shadows, okay? So, the difference between a regular full moon, dark moon, 2-card spread and the shadow work then is the things that you wouldn't normally see. So this requires you to be kind of objective and almost pretend you're reading for someone else for a minute, okay? So if I have the card on the left as the Dark Moon card, and I pull the Knight of Swords, if this were a regular reading, I might just say, okay, fine, it's the Dark Moon, it's time to contemplate on maybe how fast I think, how fast I act on things, perceive things. Okay, that would be a fair assessment. If you're doing this for the dark moon, and it could be a shadow aspect, it doesn't mean necessarily, the bad side of this or the reverse of a card, but it could be the subtleties involved in, well, maybe I'm a little too quick to judge. Maybe. This doesn't necessarily, sometimes reversals are very strong, like, you're completely erratic, you're not thinking clearly, whereas maybe a shadow is a little bit more of the, well, in your haste, you're making a few mistakes and you're not expressing yourself properly. Are you really as clear as you think you are? And, if not, maybe just slow it down a little and contemplate the speed. Also, what if you just have this paralysis and your shadow is that you just can't decide or act on things at all? That's another possible shadow. You have to feel those out and see which one resonates with you, okay? If I was to pull this next card, please make it a good card here. It's the High Priestess card. Like there's bad cards. No. It's the High Priestess card. This is for the full moon. And if it's a regular full moon reading, I might say this is where my energy is. It could be that I'm studying arcane knowledge. I'm being given this kind of secret knowledge. I have to go find it. I'm researching or studying it. It's very spiritual, as you can see, and connected to the earth and the crescent moon under here. Very, very spiritual kind of a thing. If it were shadows, you can see where I'm going with this. You might think you just don't want to connect to that witchy part of you because it's not accepted, or you're wondering what people will think, that you've lost your mind or something. You might just not want to admit that you're attracted to that kind of knowledge, or maybe that you don't have all of that knowledge. Maybe your shadow is you think you're the biggest badass witch out there, and you're not. That could be a shadow. How is it affecting you? Then clearly that would be something about a lack of acknowledgement or ego as a shadow, and to think about that. So, there's 2 cards for you. Give that a try. If I were to name these cards, I would say the first card, or the Dark Moon card, I would ask you to reflect and accept. Okay, whatever card you pull in the Dark Moon position, reflect and accept. Okay? And for the card that you pull in the full moon position, illuminate and acknowledge. Those are the key words for this card position. Illuminate and acknowledge. Pull those 2 things together. See how they balance. See if they affect one another. And take a little time out for yourself to reflect this dark moon. Thank you so much for watching. I always have a good time making these videos. I hope you enjoy watching them. And subscribe if you do like them. Don't forget, you can go over to IGTV for free readings during the week. Leave your comments below. Let me know how you use the energy or share the energy of the full moon and the dark moon, and maybe what cards you pulled. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and look up at the moon once in a while. Bye-bye.